what is called what they call history, which we call our story, which is the story of all life forms on a particular space. So the artistry is a string that goes on forever. There is no cutting this string.
I nearly cried when Dr. Sabi died. The same for Dr. Wilson. But I'ma stay focused and slay these vampires like Van Helsing. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, no ceasing racial tensions. Pigs still perpetuating modern day lynches. Cobra or viper, pick your poison. Regardless of who's in office, don't make your offspring the sacrificial offering. Some say to each his own. I say teach our own or risk having compromised or deleted genome codes. He had a sex change, we had a heated exchange. I got charged with a hate crime. Can somebody please explain? Cleaning the burner the way things is looking. I might have to kill a fool who go up in ladies' rooms cause he feel like a woman. Drug culture pushed through the channels. Slave wages, cost of living that most cannot handle. The sky still ain't cracked yet. Jesus ain't show yet. Shotters get ready to save Asada cause Cuba wide open. Massive land grabs, crackers aim to take your landmass. Smooth like a sandblast while you claim the damn past. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. No fear in the face of adversity. Despite the wear and tear and the retrograde of Mercury. My face in every database manifests destiny of a so-called master race. Everyone's a terrorist. Don't capitulate to the masses' way. Now they conscious in the mainstream. The only Hannibal that they know is from the 18. Never heard of Carthage. Would never load and bust a cartridge. Wally not a commie. Employed or ain't got a job like Tommy. We got the same enemies. We don't gotta get along as requested by Rodney. We gotta put differences aside. Genocide the optive word. That's why I'm so hostile, kid. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. Free them all, free the land, repatriate. Our ancestors have these demands. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. Look at Flint, Detroit, Milwaukee, Chirac. Slick Rick looked at Baltimore and needed another eye patch. Just got a kite from a P.O. Dub. He said don't forget to write, send money, visit, show a soldier love. I shade a Micah X, I shade to Cosmo, I shade a Kareem. Peace to the Africans in it for the long haul. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. This ain't that fly by night, this is a process. Backed by the babies aborted, the ancestors and fallen warriors. Raise the bar and set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. Families to tribes, tribes to nations. We must think in these regards to survive annihilation. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. Damn, what your child wanna be? These babies gotta become what we need. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard. Raise the bar, set the standard. Be something like our revolutionary vanguard.
It is a time, as far as we are concerned, for remembering, going back and studying a victorious time in our lives so we can pick up the principles of history, put them into structures, and so we can begin again to work as a victorious people.
Peace and black power, family. Welcome to this series I'm trying out here, Black Political Thought Series. So the series is going to be dedicated to some books, to some videos, to some discussions that are centered around Black political thought as it pertains to African liberation. So, going to be a series that I started back a while ago, and I just wanted to revamp, reshape, and realign. So, there's going to be some guests and all kind of stuff in regards to certain aspects that are very pertinent to reorienting the psychology of the African family back towards a African liberation posture and a revolutionary insurrection posture. Revolutionary insurrection posture. So essentially that is either rise in power or rest in peace. So if we don't rise in insurrection power, we will be eliminated. Rest in peace. So I'm going to play a video from our esteemed elder, our Jinga, our living ancestor, Dr. Baba Mwali Kebamani Baruti, an excerpt from his book, Mental Side. So I'm going to get into Baba and give some remarks. So feel free to chime in, listen to the video, and share your thoughts. And also, if you would like to appear on this series, this Black Political Thought series, feel free to reach out. You can email me at donowsradio@gmail.com, or you can send me an inbox, Jonathan Bourne Jackson on Facebook, or you can DM me on Instagram at NowsBourne5357 on Instagram, and on Twitter at NowsBourne15 on Twitter. We're just going to do this short series here. Don't forget to catch us after midnight. We'll be on again about an hour. Myself and Soul Sister Warrior Sister Sass Shuala, we will be in the building. So we'll be on, I think, around 12:45 or 1 o'clock, something like that, somewhere in that time. So let's get to this video. Make sure y'all support Baba. Go to www.akabinhouse.com. That is AKOBENHOUSE. akabinhouse.com. Let's support that African-centered revolutionary transformation place for our Akotos, for those warriors from the future. www.akobEnhouse.com. Akabin Institute, Akabin House. So let's get into this video.
Society theory says that you have so many people in a society, and the numbers keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, that people lose their identity because they become nobodies. They are no longer part of anything. They're disconnected. They become so individual that they're not connected to anybody, and therefore they lose their sense of self, and that causes catastrophic brain damage, if you will, at the psychological level. The individual becomes, well, let's say, in mass society. The individual becomes desperately lost. about that? The individual becomes desperately lost. That's what mass society is supposed to do. You lose your sense of self. And when you lose your sense of self, then nothing is right. Everything is wrong.
Isn't this a mass society that we live in a mass society?
Absolutely.
And it keeps growing and growing, and we're becoming disconnected from reality, from everything else.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And in this cultural context, or within this society, we live within a culture that really promotes the idea of individualism. Now, the problem, and we're supposed to get into this later, the problem is not for Europeans per se. Those statistics of suicide are considered to be normal, just like you have acceptable levels of unemployment. And so the level of suicide, these people aren't alarmed about that. They consider that to be just part of the equation, what comes with it. The problem is not for them. The problem is for us, because this type of society, not large societies, which is the problem. The problem is the organization of people within that society, within those types of societies. So if you have a massive society where you have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of collections of large family structures, or large lineages where everybody is connected, where bureaucratic structure doesn't need to come in to create orphanages or to create social welfare nets, because everything is taken care of within there. And you are somebody. Everybody in there is your mama. Everybody in there is your father. All of these are your family, brothers and sisters. Then this doesn't happen. Society can get enormous. It can get gargantuan, as long as these still remain. And then at the larger levels, then you might have this group that falls within a state or a particular political order that sits along with other, where they have their families in here, and you all trade and do whatever it is that you need to do together. But within these family structures, within these lineages, everybody knows everybody, everybody's fine. Everybody has everybody to lean on. Everybody's there for everybody. There's no one who gets lost. Everybody's accounted for. Everybody's a part. So you can have, the problem is when you have mass society and extreme individualism is promoted as the way that you're supposed to be. In order for capitalism to really profit, you have to divide people up into individuals. You have to separate them from anything that could. Capitalism is like the prostitute, like the pimp to the prostitute. And the first thing that the pimp does is he separates a prostitute from family and friends, so that pimp becomes the controlling, ruling, guiding body. So the prostitute comes to think that this pimp is the only person on this planet who loves him or her. Okay, that's the only person. And when capitalism can control individuals like that, it can ship you where it wants to, separate you from family, do all the rest of this, have you spend your money in whatever way it needs to continue to profit, which is the end goal, making that profit. Using you in whatever way it needs to produce, mass produce, whatever that's needed to produce what it needs to create its profit. So it needs individuals. It can't have families. Capitalism, European culture cannot promote the idea of family except to produce babies to survive when they have negative population growth and they see themselves as disappearing from the planet. They cannot promote the idea of family because you can't control a family the way you can control individuals. It's sort of like when you have students at a college. They're upset with the administration because they won't let them do this or they're making them do that. And then the students had a little protest. And a smart administration in the Western system, it's going to call the individuals who they see as the leaders of this protest in one at a time, individually, and it's going to terrorize them, break them down, threaten their scholarships, do whatever it needs to do to break them apart as individuals. And once you have done that, then the movement, the protest is no longer there. You can't do that as long as they're a collective. You can't do that as long as they're together. You have to break people up into individuals. And then you can use them. You can tear them apart. As long as they're not connected, not family, not organized, then you can do that. So within this context, within that mentality, then suicide is not considered abnormal. It's not considered something that's way out in left field. Okay, that's not something that's really odd. So in that context, mass society is very conducive to producing suicide. Okay, and it's even worse for Africans who come from this situation. When you're thrown into this chaos and you're disconnected from everything, these people already consider themselves to be only individuals. So this only exacerbates it, and only the weak ones commit suicide. Okay? In this society, it's quite different because these folks are all intertwined together. So if you snatch them out of this context, their whole sense of reality, it doesn't make sense. It's like you woke up in a place where nobody speaks your same language, nobody wears the same clothes, don't eat the same food. Nothing is what it's supposed to be. And there's no one to hold on to latch on to make this make sense. Whereas here, everything made perfect sense. Everything made perfect sense. Everybody had the same ideas about what you need and what you don't need, and wealth and resources and all the rest of that. Okay. Now, related to that, statistics, I'm not going to be dealing with statistics tonight because it doesn't really help the situation. We have to understand the mentality behind that. Why Europeans have a culture that is suicidogenic, which we're going to talk about in a second. Why it is considered to be a normative part of society behavior, and why it affects Africans more. That's what we need to understand. Because if we understand that, then we can stop it. If you don't understand why, all you know is a bunch of numbers and it's getting worse, then all you can do is cry. Okay. The greater the need for external, that means outside the person, validation, the higher the suicide rate. Or you can say the higher probability of individuals committing suicide. European society is dominated by external control of individuals, police, whatever, external control. In our traditions, we were raised in a culture that taught you to control yourself from your inside out. You were the judge of yourself, in a sense, even though everybody else was a mirror by which you could tell whether you were doing right or wrong. But you controlled yourself from the inside. It was internally controlled. So the more you have this, external control, external appreciation, then the easier it is to put people in a position where they want to commit suicide. If there are people who, in this cultural context, who, if they don't continue to receive approval from people on the outside for what they do and what they don't do, even when they know they're doing what they're supposed to do, what they're doing right, they feel bad. They feel very, very bad because they need other people to tell them that they're okay. There's a lot of people like that. I think everybody knows people like that. In our traditions, if you knew that you were doing right, you were doing your work. If other people said, well, that didn't affect your self-esteem. That didn't take anything away from that. You knew that you were doing what was right. So in this situation, when this is taken away, when that validation is taken away, your self-esteem is taken away. So you have a greater probability of people committing suicide. You have higher suicide rates in situations where there is an enormous amount of external validation, where people are approved of from outside, where their self-esteem is dependent upon the pats on their heads or the pats on their backs from other people. I argue that the key to understanding suicide rates, which you already talked about with that cross-cultural thing with the different countries, with the rising suicide rate relatively stable, and we've already mentioned in terms of suicide being a common phenomenon within European culture. I'm going to borrow a word from Marimba Ani. I would argue that the key to understanding suicide rates is the asili. And the culture comes out of the asili. And of course, individuals become who they are through the culture, even though I argue that there is a genetic component. So I would say genome culture. So it is ingrained in your genes, what you are, who you are. 900 years on the Caucasus Mountains, that created a psychological sense of self. It gets passed on from generation to generation to generation. Just like if you go through 12 generations of direct enslavement, violent, brutal enslavement, where you were whipped inside of your mother's womb, and this goes on for generation after generation, that race gets passed on, that trauma gets passed on. Doesn't stop. It's not something that happens as a result of you coming out of your enslavement and then you recognize and then suddenly this happens, somebody gets lynched and then you realize, oh, well, I'm angry. No, I argue that it gets passed on through the genes. And the only reason we don't like talking about genes and genetic structure is because of the mess that Europeans have made of genetic structure through their eugenics or scientific racism. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a problem with it. We didn't have a problem with it before, we don't have a problem with it. But the Seeley, as Mama Marimba calls it, is the cultural core, germinal seed, that essence of people's being that develops genocultural personality. And I know that I'm not doing it justice, but we need to be at least familiar with these concepts. So this is not something that you can touch. This is not tangible. This is the essence of a people, what they came out of, their mind. And out of their mind, they create a culture. They create society. They create themselves. And that society is a personality, which is different from the Seeley of another person that creates a different kind of cultural personality, which creates a different type of individual. Within European culture, this individual is created where there's a suicidal component, where this person is more prone to commit suicide than this person. Not only because the institutions in the society make it easy for the person to do that, but because there's a genocultural component in the individual that can be triggered more easily by different things.
Now, what is genoculture again?
To me, I have defined genoculture as a combination of genetic structure and culture. Okay, if you came into existence today as people, and you had a certain appetite for whatever, or if it was created by your environment, so you might have a greater taste for bloodthirsty violence or what have you. Now, that's part of your genetic structure, but it becomes strengthened through the culture, which manifests it in everything that you do. It's strengthened through that. And over time, those things are blended into one, and they can't be separable. A lot of people want to separate these two and say, oh, it's only culture that makes people like that. See, black folks over there acting like white folks. No, they're acting out of their cultural context. Europeans are acting in their genocultural context. Africans in this cultural context are just great imitators. This is not us. This is just the way we're acting. And it's not us because we got some genes that tell us that this is not us. This is not the way we're supposed to be. And we have a cultural context that we came through that tells us we are not us. We have, the Seeley is part of your spiritual cultural context, if you will. Okay? It's not something that's grounded here. You can't put your finger on. It's part of your essence as a people. Okay? Genoculture is just something that evolves over time, that survives with you. That's why it's so easy. You can have Europeans at peace in a particular country, if you want to call it peace, in a particular country for 20 generations. And as soon as something happens, they know to go and annihilate all those other people. It's not something that they think about. They just do.
But they just go annihilate other people.
Whoever the other people are, yes. So even if it hasn't happened for a long time, even if, let's say they annihilated a whole collection of people and then took over their land, okay? And then they became at peace with themselves and practically everybody else. And then somebody over here doesn't allow them to get a certain resource that they want. They go annihilate these other people. They don't have to sit and thought about it, policy and it all over their culture. No, they know to do this. They don't have to think about it. They know to do this.
So that's part of their nature. They do that. That's so natural.
It's their nature. All that complicated. All I do say is part of their nature.
In layman's terms.
Yes, absolutely. It's part of their nature.
So they it's not like they sit down and draw up a contract and compromise and do that. They just go and just do that.
It reminds me of a situation or some situations in Azania, which we're calling South Africa wrongly, but in Azania and in LA, when there was the threat of Africans going off because of apartheid in Azania at one particular time. I'm not sure it was Cape Town. I don't think it was Cape Town. Some days, the white folks immediately went and emptied the gun stores. There wasn't a conversation, there wasn't a vote, there wasn't a committee meeting, there wasn't a calling of Congress. They went and emptied the gun stores and got ready. On the other part of the planet, when there was a threat that black folks are going to go off in LA, the gun stores in LA were immediately emptied by the white folks in preparation. There was no conversation. There was no thinking. Exactly the same thing happened in these two separate places. Those aren't the only examples, but to me, because you're talking about two completely different parts of the world, the exact thing happened. The exact same thing happened. So like you said, it's part of this. And some people say, well, there's social conditioning and control. No. Sigmund Freud, their best psychologist, talked about how the Caucasus Mountains created an overly aggressive being. He wrote a paper. Michael Bradley talked about it in his The Chosen People of the Caucasus Mountains, and they kept this paper hidden for decades. Sigmund Freud wrote this about his own.
So what did he say, Bradley? He said that they was overly aggressive.
He was quoting Sigmund Freud.
Okay.
And Sigmund Freud said that their development as a people in the Caucasus Mountains, the violence, all the rest of that aggression that went on there in terms of their development, that this was part of their personality. That's what Sigmund Freud said. Not some obscure psychiatrist. No, the most important, most quoted psychiatrist in European history, Sigmund Freud, said this about his own. So they know. But as long as they can convince us of something else, then they're straight. They can continue to do what they do, and each time we'll find an excuse for it. We'll explain it away as anything but their nature. We'll explain it away as anything but that.
So looking at the the analysis and listening to Bob's video, he's talking about the motivations and contributing factors that shape and orient a strong-willed African warrior mind to begin to deteriorate, to begin to break down, and how the geno-cultural context becomes something that can remedy the mind that is plagued, that is seeking validation outside of itself. He said the greater lengths or stretch in regards to seeking validation outside of the self, the higher the probability for suicide, or in that case, menticide. So when you look at that, it's reminded of a reason why I was dealing with African-centered psychology so vastly. It's a underserved science in our community, among our people, that's one. But also to be able to relate and experience from one to another in regards to trauma. Trauma can be passed down epigenetically. We're dealing with transgenerational trauma from a psychological perspective, but also from a psycho-spiritual perspective, not connected to our ancestors. One of my teachers, the Su, taught me the consequence of ancestral neglect. So you have the benefits of ancestral veneration, but also the consequence of ancestral neglect. These things are not commonly taught. Your culture provides you this particular insight where you know that veneration of your ancestors is key, and neglect is something that you are supposed to strictly guard against. So, in the realm of what we're looking at in regards to African liberation, African centered education, and also African traditional spiritual systems or religion, a key component, a foundational component is ancestral veneration. So these things keep your spirit, soul, mind, and body in tune and aligned to enable you to have this and keep this revolutionary insurrection posture. You know why you're here. You're not wandering around aimlessly. You're not suffering from ancestral amnesia. So, in regards to these decisions that you make in life, are they beneficial to our liberation, to our rise, to the sanctity of the African family? Are these life affirming choices? So, from that particular vantage point, we're looking at these detriments with minds that are plagued with transgenerational trauma and no remedy. So this numbing effect begins to take place. This seeking other than self begins to take place to hide the shame of not knowing who you are. So you go to these other people, and these other people begin to tell you who they say you are, not who you are. It's what they told you and reminded you of who you are. We work in that space towards liberation. So the capitalist in this regard deals in the realm of exploitation for increasing profit. So profiting off of the devastation and the destruction of the African family, of the African psyche, grabbing a hold of that African spirit and possessing it. This parasite host relationship is there to where you are endeared and indebted to your enemy for your identity. The entity responsible for your identity crisis is now responsible for your identity resurgence. So those entities, those beasts, those predators, those devourers are responsible for the conditions that we're in. And in the Hegelian dialectic, they become what is looked to, or who is looked to be the deliverers out of the circumstances and the situations that are there. So the further we get ourselves from that particular spectrum, eliminating our selves from our protections, eliminating ourselves from existence. So the suicide is, the formality for exiting the physical realm. You had already transitioned when you lost your identity and now seek to take on another's identity and cultural practices. So that's a death already. You're already dead. Culturally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually dead. The last death for you to die is that physical death. When you see yourself of no worth and value, your existence on the planet is pointless. And you come from generation upon generation of life affirming, life giving, life repeating, life force. So now you look at this from a perspective that this black political thought process that you're embarking on is the place to re-engineer, to reorient, to reinvigorate that revolutionary insurrection posture spark to rise in power and not to rest in peace. So I just wanted to share that very quickly. As I said, this is going to be a series. I haven't worked out everything in regards to the time, frequency, but I'm sure it's going to be some short talks and get an iron out in regards to a particular regimen on how it's going to go. As I said, it'll be videos, it'll be excerpts from books, it'll be guests that'll come on and the like. So hopefully this was fruitful, and we don't look forward to the next time. So until then, Habibi Folier, Habibi Toomey, Black Power, African Liberation.
What I wanted to do was, ask you guys, who is United Front? What is the Vanguard? What is the Asafo Gang? Mayasa family?
I'll start with what is United Front. Well, United Front really started out as a concept and as a vision. Myself as being politically active after listening to a speech by Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, peace be upon him. In the speech, he spoke about Africans needing a black united front. And he also spoke about if you are a rapper, you should be a revolutionary rapper.
Run up in the spot, dumping in a Trump mask, making Africa great again with each gun blast. Devil try to weather the storm, but got your limbs broken. Should've checked the last forecast. Believe a slope too slippery for a skier or a white water rafter when I'm after my freedom. Revolution would not be viral or televised either. Each verse is weaponized, soldier recognized the beacon. Came off the mothership and back on when I die. That's mama and mama earth. Ain't nothing coming out the sky. Why you apologize, cracker ain't sorry, and I ain't worried. I ain't comfy, so that ain't for me. Yeah, you heard me. We got soldiers and supporters through these artificial borders, gun hoarders and unloaders. As an omen, the war within and the war without is happening simultaneously. God within and God around. Cats like to say that they've evolved, but you really don't want no problems, cause you got soft. Versatile styles employ multiple streams for freedom. Cracker can't starve a god with multiple streams of income. You're sure to get multiple scream when she stream a real one. Cause I'm ill, like Kim Jong. Run up in the spot, dumping in the Trump mask, making Africa great again with each gun blast. Run up in the spot, dumping in the Trump mask, making Africa great again with each gun blast.
Living in the vibe, there's confliction in the mind, confused between the needs and sit up and recline. Refuse to believe lies, but there's truth between the lines. And it's booth for me to find the natural in the design. Some things last as long as time, others are crafted. A man born a king sits at the throne, a bastard. When all the love is past tense, you You didn't remove the mask yet, eyes become unfamiliar, situations get peculiar, circles get tighter, friendships get lighter. I stop calling cowards pussy cause there's strength in the vagina. Protected by the vipers, no protection from their venom. The elected higher snipers don't mention when you elect them. The men in Senate, no reflection of my efforts. Those men's intentions to increase my brother's sentence, so I spit with no repentance. Help increase my brother's lessons. When you're walking down the street, you see complexions or reflections. Run up in the spot, dumping with the Trump mask. Make America break within with each gun blast. Run up in the spot, dumping with the Trump mask. Make America break within with each gun blast.
Run up in the spot, dumping in the Trump mask, making Africa great again with each gun blast. Run up in the spot, dumping in the Trump mask, making Africa great again with each gun blast.
Now, don't get me wrong, I do other kind of music, but there's rules. I don't need to violate the sisters. You know what I'm saying? I got tons of old music where I can hear myself violating. And you know what I'm saying? Some of it is still dope as far as hip hop. I still like hip hop. I'm not sitting here, I'm not about to promote certain things, but I still listen to a lot of things that you probably think I don't listen to. You know, but that's what I listen to. But as far as what's going to come out of my mouth, nah, we going to do George and Lamont.
It's Dito Green. I play my post like Hakeem. Rockets at the precincts for fouling my team. Use 10 times blacker than the average cracker. Use 10 like Houston. I be dream shaking these rappers. They racist illicit views get elected, they get rid of you. I need a Malcolm X man general clapping that cracker sentinels. Prosecution, prostitution, defense illusion. Bruising like we hoes, letting the pimp stay abusive. Trump said start looting, we start shooting. That's confusing. Ain't shit new you've been doing. That's driving the wrong road or shopping at bad markets. Don't give a shit about looting, but they hitting the wrong target. A man named George, sitting in the Jeep. He about to die by the knee of the police. A man named Ahmad was strolling down the path, but jogging while black and get you shotgun blast. Police and overseers I see as identical on the streets. Negroes speak pig Latin, that tongue is preventable. Your white Christ theoretical and white rice synthetic food. Your white knight in every tune, it's impossible. This imposter crew accosted you with dirty constables. Use gal to hit you with a sonic boom for eating in your dining room. The Vanguard, you don't know any as true as those. I'm a vessel for the spirits, the lightning Jakuta throws. My proof of those claims, in every verse the truth is shown. In this booth is sewn up, cause when the booth explode, like my roots screaming, Coons is home. To the wicked, I'm a sickness, I'm a virus, I'm a cancer. Rappers writing, but I sis papers, Dr. Francis. A man named George, sitting in the Jeep. He about to die by the knee of the police. A man named Ahmad was strolling down the path, but jogging while black and get you shotgun blast.
Now, United Front is the collective of MCs, myself, Dito Green, Doc Moxie, aka Ambassador O, and my brother out of Milwaukee, my brother University Avenue. So collectively, we are known as United Front. We are all 4 solo artists. Collectively, we also have groups within the group. But United Front ultimately is a collection of artists who are revolutionary in thought and in action, and it's about the uplifting of black people.
We ain't trying to struggle no more.
No more struggling.
Act like the block in the jungle no more.
Act like the block in the jungle.
When you made it out, they don't love you no more.
Where the love
they
go?
wonder why the trust is so low.
So low.
So low.
You know?
We ain't trying to struggle no more.
We ain't trying to struggle no
Act
more.
like the block in the jungle no more.
The block in the jungle.
When you made it out, they don't love you no more.
Hey, where the love
they
go?
wonder why the trust is so low.
So low.
So low. I can see why they ain't lonely at the bottom. Everybody judging, they ain't holding up they honor. You can hold me to my word, don't gotta be a scholar. It's caps off, not at college. We graduated from dollars to commas. What's next is digits. Victory is upon us. Don't be quick to speak. See, silence is golden. When you're grinding, your emotions control them. And be modest, ain't no folding. When it's violence, I'm unloading till it's sirens. Even though I'm protecting mine. Around here, respect is prize. You can tell I make how I stay next to nines. I see them look and start recognize before I'm recognized. Never forget, the mind's weaponized. It's still a sophomore when it's repping time. Cause the whole city cutthroat just to be next in line, next in line, next in We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block in the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. And they wonder why the trust is so low, so low. We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block ain't the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. And they wonder why the trust is so low, so low. Happy misery loves comfort. Love just don't love and leave. But ask me to just believe that when you're starving, it's hard not to adjust the greed. I was living out the balance. I never wanted to touch the beams. But when you're stuck, touch your spleen, you be damned if famine crush the team. Tops get cropped. If we come for cream, we might think we do it just for gleam. The diamond encrusted rings. But when I was asleep, I had illustrious dreams. Still, every angel doesn't come with wings. Nightmare on every street. Imagine waking up a king, the throne, the trusting queen. Carving cover, carving out the plusher scenes. Apart, we do our part together. What a love supreme. To success, I become a fiend, addicted to multiple incoming streams. I still rather be invisible than run the scene. Prosperity brings jealousy more than the money green, huh? We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block ain't the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. And they wonder why the trust is so low, so low. We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block ain't the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. And they wonder why the trust is so low, so low.
Low on meditation, low on education, low on self-preservation, low in expectation, low in behold. If low is your goal, you stuck in limbo, so how low can you go? Stab, shot, molly, wop, pop, and not yet. We rep that block, love that inanimate object. Love J, love Nip. Love Pac, yeah, slacking, acting like a lackey, wondering why you ain't a boss yet. Crabs in the bucket, envious of the sun's glint, inspecting the state of my property like I'm young Chris. Failure is an option, success is a function that requires action, knowledge, and no assumptions. Watching my pockets won't make yours feel. Can't be DiBiase working like Virgil. Whatever you refuse to teach yourself, the world will. And if I go before you, look for me in the world.
We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block ain't the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. Why the trust is so low, so low. We ain't trying to struggle no more. Can't act like the block ain't the jungle no more. And when you made it out, they don't love you no more. And they wonder why the trust is so low, so low.
When I found Africa, it gave me my heart. It gave me a sense of direction. And it really told me what my responsibility was to my people. And what John Henry Clark said, you know, if it can't be used for your liberation, then it needs to be thrown in the trash can of history. So rather than waste my words and my talent just saying empty words and empty ideas, I'd rather say what's on my heart.
I hate you. Couldn't find more beautiful words, more suitable words to berate you. For some money, for some power, my son couldn't date you. You be wanting to swallow babies and claiming he raped you. Never. I will never let you kill him. You gon' try to lynch him. You gon' paint him as a villain, try to imitate him. German, English, or Sicilian, it don't make a difference. Try to hurt one of my children, throw you off a building. This war, as blood covers the shores, the whirlwind has returned. The Garvey in the store, we prepare for revolution with Garvey type resolve. Till the issue was resolved. How do you trust a psychopath who go around conquering lands? His aspiration is the love for a man. How do you trust a peace officer, revolver in hand, who's known to start sparking the dark of the tan? How do you trust a school system that teaches you a slave and neglect that you a victim? Then they ship you right to prison. Don't own where you live and be the first to be evicted. And it's really that specific. You take it as a joke. Malcolm tried to tell you when you taking it for quotes. Take the information, take it to the babies. Organize the brothers down to take a crack and throat. We won't make it if you don't. My black power is anti-white, cause they anti-life. Killer cracker, it's a chance I might see a thief, you cut his hands on sight. Put your hands up right on our behalf to advance our plight. Show they dinner with some men, not mice. Say the meek shall inherit the earth, but the weak shall be fleeced and be buried in dirt. Say men from the church, we can only die second if you bury them first. See, we disregard history, scoff at our traditions and believe in the mystery. It makes no sense to me. Jesus Christ was the first of the slaves. ships packed full of Africans locked up, chained with. They gave me a machete to go chop up cane with. We fighting for our freedom, so we chop up caves, bitch. Yeah, and kill whoever they came with. You can't reform devil, you ain't never gonna change him. Black Power, RBG, United Front, Sappho Gang, University Ave, Gator Green, Doc Maki, Mental Sun, Knowledge Bomb.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them that in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get back to the gritty.
Motive is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.